Attention podcast listener, we've got an exciting new podcast coming just for patrons of patreon.com/Talking Simpsons.
Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 1 has begun exclusively for our $5 and up patrons on the Talking Simpsons Network. That's the first 10 episodes of Futurama coming to you once a week.
So just sign up for $5 a month at patreon.com/Talking Simpsons, and you'll get Talking Futurama Season 2 and all of our limited miniseries, including the entirety of Talking Futurama Season 1. That's 13 episodes.
That is patreon.com/Talking Simpsons. Now please enjoy the rest of this podcast.
Cartoons from present in the past. Every week will be an animated bash. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! Maybe a short but mostly shows. We'll talk, we'll analyze, exploring as we go. What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon! What a cartoon!
Hello, everybody, and welcome to What a Cartoon, where we believe in the heart of merchandising. I'm your host, the green eyes white person, Bob Mackey, and this is an audio exploration of every cartoon ever. Who is here with me today?
Your very own dark magician, Henry Gilbert.
And today's episode is the Yu-Gi-Oh! Episode, The Heart of the Cards.
What the? Now, Kaiba, prepare yourself, because it's time to duel.
Ooh, high stakes. And today's episode is a patron request, isn't that right, Henry? One of our $50 patrons.
That's right. One of our top-level patrons. The spaces go fast. If any of them open up, you should be sure to jump on them. But yeah, recurring one here, Alex Irish, back again. And the reason they picked the Yu-Gi-Oh! In the first episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is, quote, I picked Yu-Gi-Oh! Because it was the first monster battling franchise after Pokemon to seriously challenge its popularity. Aiming older and darker, the attitude, pacing, and tone of Yu-Gi-Oh! Made a transitional franchise for kids and teens who were growing out of Pokemon at the turn of the century. Though not me. That's the end of the quote, but I believe that means they didn't age out of Pokemon, they did them concurrently.
Oh, okay, that's legal. It's nice and legal. You could do both.
But I think, fitting then, which I don't think this was originally our plan, but fitting that we're doing this right after our Pokemon episode last week.
Yes, because I'm sure 4 kids intended this, and this is like, for them, it would be you transition from Pokemon into Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you were but a child playing Pokemon, but now you are a preteen, perhaps, ready for the dark world of Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything is a lot pointier. The colors are different.
Yeah, everything's sharper and more brutal, and things are more intense. It's definitely a more grown-up show by 2 years grown up, I should say, into like tween. But yeah, 4 kids had a real strategy here, which I'll get into in the history. But what's our personal histories with it? I think probably pretty light on both accounts.
It is pretty light. So where I found out about Yu-Gi-Oh! Was, of course, I knew a lot about anime, being way into anime at the time, but I worked at a software, etc., where I sold these cards. These cards were extremely popular. They would soon eclipse Pokemon cards for us in terms of what we were selling. And they were things that were shoplifted the most often, even though they were not behind the counter, but to the side of the counter. It was a very poorly designed store.
Yeah, those cards, they slip right into a pocket so easily.
And you can just tear open that bag in the back of the store, pretend to look at PC games. But I will say that we ran out of American Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards, and I guess there was like a printing thing where they had to make more, but there was a gap of time in which there were no cards on the market to sell to American children. So GameStop or software, etc., whoever owned them, imported Japanese cards, which were a huge ripoff because, number one, they were marked up because they were imports, but number two, in a Japanese booster pack, you would get fewer cards than you would in American. So I think there were 6 cards in a Japanese booster pack and maybe 8 or 10 Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards in the American booster pack.
That's illegal.
So I think kids were paying like $7 for 6 cards in 2002.
Well, when you got the need, you gotta fulfill it somehow.
Yeah, and boy did they ever, supply and demand. But I will say that this is not a slight to Alex, who I've met is a very nice person, but I did not truly appreciate how stupid this show is. And now I do, and I found it entertaining. But when I was, I watched one at my anime club or something, I was like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. They're just teaching you how to play the game. And I still think this one thing now, and that this is like the peak of over-designed 90s characters, and that the hair is so complex and pointy. I think it was like they're raising the bar for just overcomplicated 90s anime.
The pointier it gets, the more memorable they are, the more unique.
Yeah.
But until eventually you have all the points of like a snowflake on them.
Yeah, when I saw Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh's hair, I was just like, come on. I like pointy
Yeah.
hair, but geez. But now I appreciate how over-designed and cynical and stupid it is. It's a fun, stupid show.
Well, and Yugi's got like double crazy hair because his normal, like everyday hair is crazy, and then it gets even pointier when he's possessed by Pharaoh. I did not give this a chance when it was new because it's kind of the flip side of Pokemon for me. I was too old for Pokemon, but I got into it because I also really like the cuteness of it. But then when this debuted 3 weeks after 9/11,
Yeah.
I did feel different and didn't feel. I was like, no, I've grown out of this. And also, it wasn't as cute. And I never got into collectible card games or trading card games. Like, never, ever. I had friends who were super into Magic, and the many Magic ripoffs that America got in the 1990s that even included ones with superheroes. You'd think I would have played it because Spider-Man would have a card.
Yeah.
But I just couldn't get into it. If I wanted to play a dedicated game like that, I would play a video game or I would play a tabletop role-playing game as I got into those later in the 90s. But TCGs never got into, and if I was going to play one, I'd play Magic, which is the one all the people my age were playing, not Yu-Gi-Oh!
I played a little bit of the Pokemon card game, but this did not appeal to me.
Though my husband gave me a bit of an insight into this era because he's 8 years younger than me, so he was playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Back when it was age appropriate for him as a 12-year-old. So he told me like, oh no, this is what was so cool about the show, or this was what was cool about the deck, or how the show taught him how to play the game. So I'll be sprinkling some of that in there. One other thing I do notice about it now as an adult watching it is that I think this show was really, or the original manga at least, heavily inspired by JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Because that is a Shonen Jump series as well that was very popular about 8 years before Yu-Gi-Oh! Debuted in Shonen Jump. And it also is about mind games and combat without combat kind of fights that are always about outthinking the other person. And once you defeat them, you basically do a mind crush to them and they give up. So I see a lot of JoJo in there, though. Correct me, I suppose. Though his stance, like his cool guy pocket stance with his open school jacket when he's Yami Yugi, that looks to me like Jotaro Dwell and his
I can
cool
see that,
posing.
yeah.
But yeah, what is the story of Yu-Gi-Oh? The boy who plays cards that somehow become real monsters that fight in front of you, or VR simulations of them.
Yugi and the Cardosaurus.
There's a character named Rex Raptor in the show.
Oh, jeez. Of course there is.
That's basically Cardosaurus. But yeah, how Yu-Gi-Oh! Got invented, its rise to popularity in Japan, and its arrival in the US is much more complicated than it might seem on the surface, with several false starts and then ending in a bunch of lawsuits. So
Oh, I didn't actually see the lawsuit parts.
that's kind of in the epilogue. But
Okay.
there's lawsuits for sure. Though there should have been more. I'll get into that too.
Oh, cool.
But let's start with the creator of Yu-Gi-Oh!, Kazuki Takahashi, the manga artist. I shouldn't be so froofy. The comic book artist who created the series. He was born in 1961, didn't become a professional artist until 1982, and it took him 14 years into the 90s to actually get his first hit series.
Wow. So he was like 40 when this was huge.
Yeah. And,
Interesting.
that's when he was cashing the big checks. But after several attempts in 1996, September of 1996, he successfully pitches a concept to Shueisha's Weekly Shonen Jump, the biggest weekly manga magazine there is. Like, it's the home of Dragon Ball and JoJo at this time. Will go on to be the home of Naruto and One Piece and everybody's favorite Jump series. So he pitches this comic series about a young boy with crazy hair who gets possessed by the spirit of an ancient pharaoh who then plays life-threatening games that are different each story in search of artifacts known as Millennium items, including the Millennium Puzzle, which he solves to unlock the pharaoh spirit that embodies him.
It actually reminds me a lot of Kaiji, except Kaiji is playing death games to pay off gambling debts.
Well, in the original first year of the series, it got really dark Kaiji style, like not as cruel as Kaiji's gambling games. But one example I saw of the darker stuff in the first year of the comic is they play a game where they put stacks of money on their hands.
Yeah.
And you hit a knife into it and you see how low a stack of money you can get without stabbing through your hand. Or games that end in like death and gore and violence. Characters like Joey, let's call him, he kills multiple characters on screen. Like characters just
Sets them on fire. Somebody gets set on fire.
One guy gets set on fire. It's more like they let him get set on fire. And yeah, Joey, a bad guy, is holding on by one hand and then he hits that hand with a yo-yo and the guy just falls to his death.
Wow.
Like, there's a lot of dark stuff there with borderline gambling elements. Like it's still for boys of the normal Jump audience, but it is one of the edgier books in Jump at the time. Though I think at the time too, JoJo was pushing things even farther. So Yu-Gi-Oh got away with a lot of stuff in its first year. Now, interesting in that first year, he's doing a bunch of varied stories, Takahashi is. In the 9th chapter, he introduces a new character named Seto Kaiba as classmate, who is really good at playing the game Magic and Wizards, which
I like how clumsy that is.
And the game is Magic the Gathering, which is owned by Wizards of the Coast.
Where there's magic, there's wizards.
So Takahashi was being pretty clear on what game they were really playing. But in a one-off story, Kaiba steals or takes away Yugi's grandfather, Sugoroku, took away his most precious card, and Yugi has to fight him for revenge and defeats him. But that's a one-off story in Chapter 9. They then go back to playing other games, including like games at a theme park, or one they just play a tabletop RPG, which I think again shows that Takahashi is a mega dork for Western things.
Sounds like it, yeah.
He also is reportedly a big fan of American comic books. He even did a fun art trade with, after Yu-Gi-Oh! Is internationally popular, he draws Yu-Gi-Oh! With Hellboy, and then Mike Mignola draws Hellboy wearing a Yu-Gi-Oh! T-shirt.
Wow.
Kind of a fun art trade.
I like that.
But they're finding out in Shonen Jump, I think, that Magic and Wizards issue was their most popular. And, when you get to the end of a year of being published in Shonen Jump, your level of popularity kind of gets measured, and they're like, well, do we continue? Do we cancel? What do we do to change things? How do we maintain or increase popularity? They see that Magic and Wizards is getting very popular. So in chapter 60, meaning the 60th week of the comic, they then decide that it's Magic and Wizards all the time. They are getting rid of all other games, and it's just going to be playing card games.
That's the power of editors, right?
Yeah. It's Takahashi. Your editor, your assigned editor at Shonen Jump, is almost like a co-writer of your book, because they are making so many demands of your title, because otherwise it's their butt on the line too if the series gets canceled.
Kind of like a TV showrunner.
Totally.
Yeah.
Or like a non-writing executive producer, or like a co-executive.
Ooh, a non-writing producer.
See, that's a good line
Yeah.
from a recent Simpsons.
I'm quoting a season 30 episode of The Simpsons.
Magic and Wizards will soon be renamed to the much less illegal Duel Monsters. And I think that's because by the start of 1998, Takahashi's comic is looking to be adapted, and the cards are looking to be sold as real cards. So, I don't know this for a fact, but I would construct the timeline as maybe when they changed it in Chapter 60, that's when Bandai comes to them and says, we're looking to make cards of this and sell them, so just make it about cards. And at the same time, Toei, the anime company that did Dragon Ball Z and Sailor Moon, they license Yu-Gi-Oh! For its own television series as well. And they're going to be starting from Chapter 1. So April 1998 sees the launch of the Toei series and Bandai's selling Duel Monsters cards in Japan. But something just doesn't click. Like, the Toei series, though toned down from the comics, is still pretty violent and dark, and there's only one Duel Monsters episode because they're doing all the first year of the comics, so they're not playing Duel Monsters. And also Kaiba in that one episode has green hair. It's a weird choice. So that's called Season 0 by fans because it only went 27 episodes, which if you launch in April and you're canceled by October, that's a failed show in Japan in the 90s. Bandai is only selling so many Duel Monsters. They kind of drop it by the start of 1999. 1999 as well. So it seems like, oh, this Yu-Gi-Oh thing, they tried, struck out. Oh, well. But one company actually has some success in 1998 with Duel Monsters, and that is Konami, because they got the rights to make video games based on Yu-Gi-Oh! That year. By the end of 1998, they have released a Yu-Gi-Oh! Game on the PlayStation and the Game Boy, and the sales are apparently so good that Konami decides they're sticking with Yu-Gi-Oh! And they want in big time on it. They buy the rights to make the cards of Duel Monsters from Bandai, and they start developing the cards themselves for sale in Japan. And, I think they're also, by the start of 1999, really riding the wave of Pokemon success, especially with their Game Boy release of Yu-Gi-Oh! I think they're selling it to all the same Japanese kids who, if they got into Pokemon when they were 8 in 1996, they're now 11 in 1999.
Yeah, makes sense.
So Konami is going to make more video games of it. They're selling the card games. And they also want to relaunch the animated series and have it be totally focused on selling the cards, not any other of the silly side games, which, if you're in the business of making money, that is the right way to adapt that manga. Just skip straight to the cards.
Yeah, the anime is very much the How to Buy Action Figure Man series.
Me and you both watched the dub and the sub version of it. And in the sub version, they're even more clear of like, I like to buy cards. Let's buy cards at the game store.
Here's where you buy them.
So Konami wants to relaunch it, and they'll even kind of treat the Toei series of like, if you've heard of that, we're not going to fully explain what happened in the episodes before that.
Yeah, in the sub, there's like a 20-second prologue before the opening song where it's like, well, here's Yugi, he unlocked the power of this, and this is why he can transform, which is sorely lacking in the dub version. There's so much context you don't have.
It's an odd choice. Even with that little bit of context, it's still crazy to be like, what are these powers? Who inhabits this kid's body? Especially when he pulls out Mind Crush at the end, you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
You have magic powers.
I have so many questions.
That's why you keep watching the show. You'll learn. So yeah, Konami's looking to relaunch it, focused on Duel Monsters. And so, as Takahashi's comic continues at Shonen Jump, getting to be one of its more popular series, Konami hires Nihon Ad Systems as a production company for both the anime and other non-card game and video game merchandise. And NAS themselves hire Gallop as the production company for the anime to launch the series in April of 2000, which, as we talked about in Pokemon, April is when you launch a show for children, in Japan.
So what else has Studio Gallop done? I've heard the name.
That's interesting you asked that. They got started in the late 70s. They were a bunch of people who worked at Mushi Pro.
Okay.
They worked on a lot of manga adaptations. Their biggest hits were they worked on Kochi Kame, that very long-running cop thing from Shonen Jump.
Yeah.
They did the baseball One Touch. They worked a little on Rurouni Kenshin.
The anime is free of perverts.
Sure, yes.
For the most part.
And most importantly, right before this, they worked on one of your and my favorites from 96 to 98, Kodomo no Omocha.
Oh, great. Awesome. That's
I love
great.
that
No wonder
series.
I've heard of them.
Yeah, so Gallop is really, really great. And they basically turned into much like OLM became the Pokemon studio, they have been the Yu-Gi-Oh! Studio ever since. They still work on other stuff, but they did some in-between and help animation on films like Kiki's Delivery Service. They did work on that too. So the series director was, on the first season at least, Kunihisa Sugishima. They had got their start on the first Gundam series, like Gundam Zeta and Double Zeta.
So back in the 70s?
Late 70s, yeah. And then transitioned over to Gallop, and to this day is mainly working on the Beyblade series.
Oh, which is like another merchandisable thing.
Yeah, even more. Well,
are those like battle tops?
It's battle tops.
That's what I thought.
It's tops. It's
and then they're still doing that, right?
I believe it's still around. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And the show's head writer would be Junki Takagami, who has worked on countless kid shows, like a million seasons of Power Rangers and Pokemon, and a bunch of other shows that never even came over to America.
That's a good guy for it then.
And special shout out to animation director and animation director of this episode, Takahiro Kagami, because he was a big part of defining the initial look to the characters and monsters of the show. He was adapting from Takahashi's comics, but he gave a real heart and soul to, like, the crazy reactions you see in this episode. That's a lot him. Or the monster action. That's a lot of him too.
There's one especially I see memed a lot in this episode. On Twitter.
God, the look on his face is, and also there's another super mimetic moment in the series many times where the character of Kazuya/Joey, he'll kind of do like a bald fist and then get like drawn with an extra pointy chin, and he's like, oh. That's a reference to the pro wrestler Antonio Inoki.
Okay, I've heard him based on hearing you.
Yeah. He's he was the Hulk Hogan of his time, though even bigger in the 70s. Like, he's even more famous than Hulk Hogan in Japan. And so also noted in the show, at least in the early seasons, didn't seem to be a ton of communication between card game people and the anime people because they break a lot of rules of how to play the card game.
Yeah, I was wondering just how much coordination there was between the card makers and the anime makers, because this is all about, like, here's how you play the game.
There is to an extent, but I think especially in the first season, they feel like if we want to tell a dramatic story, we're not going to let rules get in the way of that.
Yeah, I mean, because Pokemon, the anime, is like a representation of what you're doing in the game in terms of what people are doing in this world. But this is basically, here is how you play the game we're selling you. Like in Pokemon, people aren't playing the Game Boy game Pokemon and giving each other tips.
They don't go. You don't see Ash go to the store and buy a Pokemon game. Yeah, they go really wild with the rules, especially. My husband pointed out a few things just in this episode where they're like, well, you can't summon like that, or you'd have to, or you'd have a card that would just clear monsters from the deck. You wouldn't be this screwed by having 3 different monsters that are powerful summoned. Like, there's aspects of it the show really kind of just skips over. I heard they get better at it as the series goes. Another change they make overall in the series is that in a standard Yu-Gi-Oh game, you have more hit points than this show starts you with 2,000, but it's just to make matches faster.
Yeah, I can see why.
So I don't blame them for that. So the first episode debuted on TV Tokyo, April 2000.
Almost 20 years ago.
It reimagined the card. Wow, yeah, man. It reimagined the tabletop card game as this bunch of monsters that will visually fight each other in VR, and retells Chapter 9 again, which they did. So Chapter 9 in the comic already had an episode in Season 0. This first episode reworks that chapter as a pilot for the series as well. So that's why this works, I think, so well as a one complete story, because they're like retelling a one-off manga chapter for the third time. So they're getting pretty good at it at this point. So the series would go on to be a huge hit in Japan in 2000, selling so many cards and arguably becoming Konami's biggest cash cow, way bigger than Solid Snake.
That's why they stopped making video games.
Pretty much. You know, when people blame Konami, Bob, we should be selling "Fuck Konami" T-shirts.
Or those awful "Make Konami Great Again" hats.
Ugh, the worst.
Don't wear a parody MAGA hat. I swear to God.
Yeah, it's like I'm stealing this joke from somebody. Like it's an ironic swastika. I
think that was my joke.
Okay, hey, well, I steal for the best.
I'm calling the police.
But Konami, when people make fun of them as, you know, they just gave into pachinko machines, it's also Yu-Gi-Oh. Like Yu-Gi-Oh and pachinko machines gave them so much money that AAA video games that we happen to enjoy became so less of a priority to them.
Now they make money on adult and child gambling.
Yeah, yes, it's crazy how they get away with it. Really, I mean, this is an immoral show, I will say.
It really is.
But hey, it's fun too.
It's perfect for the post 9/11 world.
So it's 2000 in America. Pokemon couldn't possibly be any bigger in the United States. It's got hit games, TV, films, toys, card game of its own. It's selling huge to children all over North America, as it's doing internationally. So because of that, everybody's looking for franchises that are popular in Japan that they can then import and market successfully in America, and also make billions and billions of child dollars.
It wasn't Monster Rancher. That wasn't going to move the needle.
They tried with that. They tried with Digimon. Digimon did all right. Apparently, it's a better show than Pokemon, some people say, We'll get to that in our whatever Digimon episode we do. But everyone's so thirsty to create the next Pokemon, and that includes 4Kids who have Pokemon. They're like, well, we should have another Pokemon, though. Why stop at one?
What if we had more money?
That's the American way, and 4Kids was going hard on that. So 4Kids saw the success of Yu-Gi-Oh! In Japan and thought they could take the same approach as Pokemon. I think it was an easy pitch for them to go to Konami and say, like, hey, do you know how we made Pokemon successful? We can do the same thing for Yu-Gi-Oh! In America. We can be part of that marketing muscle. And so Konami, who is already considering publishing the games themselves in the US, they decide that, yeah, we're going to work together with 4Kids. And then they also signed a deal with the American card company Upper Deck for them to be the publishers of the card game, because Konami doesn't have the infrastructure to sell the cards themselves in America, like print and sell them.
Yeah, I do recall seeing that Upper Deck logo when I was selling cards to kids who are all now 30.
So it sounds like Upper Deck was the one who screwed up and caused all the
they
strife
pulled a real
in your
Upper
office.
Decker, if you ask me.
It's about a baseball, Bob.
Sure,
it's not
it is.
about poo. Come
Pooping in a toilet tank. That's what I see.
So 4Kids got their rights to translate Yu-Gi-Oh! In 2000. They start working on it. They hire TAJ once again to be the dubbers of it. The guys who worked on Pokemon have Dan Green doing both sides of Yu-Gi. And you have Eric Stewart, the voice of Brock and James.
Yeah, I recognized him for sure.
He plays Seto Kaiba as well as the voice director of the series. So he did the voice direction for the whole 6 seasons of classic Yu-Gi-Oh!, which is only 5 seasons in Japan, but 6 seasons here. How did that happen?
I
just wanted to
I gotta
tease.
know. Clip shows.
So Pokemon went through, changes and edits here and there for sure. We talked about them last episode. Can't compare to what they did to Yu-Gi-Oh! Though. Like, Yu-Gi-Oh! Was a more adult show than Pokemon, plus it was explicitly set in Japan, so there's more Japanese things you have to kind of paste over on your computer and hide and get rid of.
And all the Japanese text on every card you see, right?
Every single one of them, yeah. It seems like a way bigger challenge for localization than Pokemon was, just to like digital effects you have to add in here and there. And that also goes down to the characters as well. Yami Yugi, Yugi Moto, and Seto Kaiba, they get to stay the same. They're basically the Goku and Vegeta of the show. So they decide, well, let's not change those guys. But a lot of other characters got either fully had their names changed or partially changed. Of the lead guys, you got Katsuya becomes Brooklyn's own Joey Wheeler.
Oh, joy.
You've got Anzu becoming Taya, and Hiroto becomes Tristan. So all of his friends become much more, American. And
It's weird that they would think, I don't know. I mean, they eventually got over it, I think, but it's weird that they're like, that's too foreign, when the appeal of these things for kids and teens, like, this is foreign and cool. Like, it's called Yu-Gi-Oh!, not like Card Battle Fun Times or whatever,
I guess for branding purposes, they're like, well, it's called Yu-Gi-Oh! Let's keep Yugi. And Seto Kaiba is just a cool name, but like Katsuya, Anzu, those are stranger names.
What am I looking at?
to American ears, anyway. But that's just the start of it, though. Unlike Pokemon, it was a much more violent show that included death a whole lot. It was made for a slightly older and more male demographic, meaning like there's guns, there's battles where people die, there's all this violence. And also some more adult themes too, like some more present boobs than you would get in Pokemon too. So boobs got to get covered up. Japanese text got to go away. Guns have to be pushed away so people just like point at you.
Yeah. Point at you in a very gun-like manner.
Hey, get over here. Well, hey, whoa, hey, what are you doing? It's they should have at least put walkie-talkies in this.
Oh, yeah. Or like a fun, like whatever they did in One Piece, they like made every gun like a squirt gun, or like put like a hammer on the end of it.
That lollipop, the classic
Yeah.
One Piece lollipop. Yeah, actually, One Piece is worse than this. And most infamous of all is the Shadow Realm, which comes from, in the show, in the second episode, the grandpa gets kidnapped by Maximilian Pegasus. At least that's his American name. Pegasus kidnaps him and does take him to a shadowy realm. So smartly, the localizer's like, well, we already set up that a person can be, basically ghosted to this ethereal realm. Let's just say that happens anytime a person dies or is sent to hell in the show. So
It's the whole another dimension of this dub.
I think it's even smarter than Dragon Ball's Another Dimension. Just call it the Shadow Realm. And
Sounds better.
My husband showed me what probably was the craziest one in the original series anyway, where in the Japanese version, giant buzzsaws come out. And over the course of the card game, the buzzsaws get closer and closer, and they will either hack up Yugi or his opponent. But they change it in this to black discs. And the black discs, if they touch you, send you to the Shadow Realm.
So are the saw blades just an omnipresent part of this game in this show?
They like saw blades a lot in the
Okay,
animation. I do think
But there's
so,
always like
yeah.
a death element to playing the game.
You're putting your life on the. I mean, in the comic, they're called penalty games. So
okay.
yeah, it's there again. That feels like Kaiji is taken into.
It really
account
does.
there, yeah.
And Kaiji predates this, the manga.
Oh, very much so. Yeah. What's crazier, Yugi's hair or Kaiji's nose?
I appreciate the ugliness of Kaiji more than Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know why. It's like a unique ugliness.
So, 4Kids and Taj, they're working hard on localizing it. Konami's getting ready to launch the games. The cards are getting sent to stores. 9/11 happens. And then 3 weeks later, the show debuts in Kids WB. Coincidence? Yes. No. But I can't not set it in time of like, oh yeah, 3 weeks after 9/11, that's when this premieres.
It's a real landmark date. Thinking about just like the state we were all in.
I bet its premiere got delayed 2 weeks because of 9/11.
It's like we cannot air this now. The country is mourning.
Who knows what we'll need to air on a Saturday morning to comfort children. But yeah, it did debut on Kids WB, which, I mean, they had to be hungry for another Pokemon show. And again, way cheaper than Hysteria, that's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a fast success with kids in 2001, late 2001. These were the kids who had now aged out of their Pokemon games and Pokemon cards, but they weren't grown up enough yet for Magic. So they are ready for Yu-Gi-Oh! It's sinisterly perfect marketing planning.
And the game does seem fairly simple compared to Magic.
Relatively, yeah, but I think though the cards, they get a lot more complicated as time goes on. I hear it's pretty complicated these days. So please let me know in the comments if you're still an active Yu-Gi-Oh player.
If you have one of
these
those
days.
dumb like arm things.
No one actually plays with those.
I saw someone in college with one of those. I was just
That-
like, come on.
That is so. It's talk about evil marketing. Those things are great because all you need is just a table to flop down your cards, and you already got people to buy cards, and maybe you get like a placemat that shows where you put your cards or
Yeah.
whatever. But they're like, well, that's not expensive enough. We have to create giant plastic shit you put on your arms, and that's where you put your
It's so
cards.
goofy looking.
I mean, I guess in game it makes the action more, exciting to see like, whoa, fwing, I pulled out my big blade here, and I'm going to put 5 cards on my blade.
I guess if you're a little kid, it's cool, but not if you're in college.
No, that your friend should have been ashamed. And I did mean to mention too of that animator I said earlier, Takahiro Kagami, who I mentioned earlier. Another of his big things he added to the show was he's really good at drawing fingers and different finger posing that's dynamic. Which in a show that's all about playing cards and holding them in your
And
hand,
flipping things over. Yeah.
that's the type of guy you need. And you can see a lot of that on display in this very episode. So yeah, the games are selling big, the cards are selling big. VHSs and now DVDs
Ooh.
of it are selling really big. First, Warner Brothers actually has the rights to it because it is a kids WB show. So I think they're like, let's get on the distribution of these videos too.
But this is before the age of putting a season of something on a DVD
Yeah,
set. So
yeah.
it's like, here's 3 episodes, here's 4 episodes, right?
Yeah. So give us $40 and here you go, kids. And later it will be taken over by Funimation. So the original Yu-Gi-Oh series, huge international hit, billions of cards sold, like literally billions. And according to that one Wikipedia page of highest grossing franchises globally, it's like above Lord of the Rings, like
That's
and
always
Harry Potter.
That's always interesting to see. I think maybe it was Nina that was retweeting some Twitter thread that was like, here is how relevant Japanese media properties are. Like, here is what's bigger than Marvel movies. Here's what's bigger than Star Wars. And it is surprising to see that things that people like just shrug at or laugh at are just actually bigger than the things Disney is buying for billions of dollars.
Yeah, we think Spider-Man's big, but that's nothing. And Star Wars is big, and they are, big, but Pokemon's worth more than both of those combined, like just in how many it's sold. But yeah, I think that's a very, myopic view of Americans of just like, well, if it's not popular here, it can't be popular anywhere. Well, meanwhile, like if something's big in Japan, it can sell in America, but also all of Asia, which you might be surprised to learn is a lot of people.
Yeah.
And Europe too. Like all these things could be giant hits. Like, well, meanwhile, Star Wars, has been big in Japan, but like one of the stories of Star Wars lately has been they just can't sell it in China, or it's not as big in China as they want it to be. Even after putting like big Chinese stars in Rogue One, they still are having trouble breaking into the Chinese market. But yeah, Yu-Gi-Oh's first incarnation would air over 200 episodes and one movie.
Wow.
It would end in Japan in 2004, which was right around when Takahashi was completing his series as well. And that would be the last weekly series he would do because, I mean, if I was him and had that kind of money, I'd be like, no more weekly deadlines for me.
He built his solid gold house in Tokyo.
Though he would oversee a lot of, the continuations of Yu-Gi-Oh! And other artists, but he was pretty much done as a weekly manga artist after that in 2004. And also in 2003 in America, Viz would finally start publishing stateside the original comics, which they didn't censor as much as you'd think, and even kept a lot of the Japanese names and ignored the 4Kids
That's
names.
good.
Now, in America, the original series ended in 2006 because it saw an unprecedented extra 12 episodes that were made by Gallup, but for 4Kids.
Wow.
4Kids actually paid for original episodes of the show, 12 more episodes.
Did Japan ever get those?
I think you could buy them like specialty, but they didn't air in Japan.
That is crazy, yeah. To like commission new anime.
I mean, that shows you how flush with money 4Kids was. They're like, we'll actually pay for new animation. Like that goes completely against the 4Kids model of cheapness.
They're paying for anything.
Yeah, but these are real episodes of the show made by the Yu-Gi-Oh team. This isn't like some cheapo thing done with out of a different studio or something. And it's 12 episodes long. The season is called Capsule Monsters, and you might I think you can guess what they're ripping off.
Can you put those in your pocket, perhaps?
They go inside just a little capsule. You might be able to, I think. Also in 2006, I did want to mention that's when the first abridged anime series began, with Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged by Little Karibo, a.k.a. Martin Billany, which really came at the perfect time where the children who grew up with Yu-Gi-Oh! Were ready to watch a silly edit of them that pointed out all of the dumb stuff that happens in the show. And it was the first abridged anime series.
I heard those are very fun. Friend of the show, Nina Matsumoto, loves that series.
I watched a couple dozen of them. They are really funny. And you do get a sense of what the plot of the show is too if you didn't watch the show. But my husband was telling me more things of like, oh, that's why this is a joke, or this is why this is funny. But it created like these meme moments that are including in this episode, which are like, screw the rules, I've got money. Like that's which is what Kaiba says when Yugi in the abridged version points out, like, no, you can't summon that many monsters at once. He's like, screw the rules, I've got money. Yu-Gi-Oh! Continues to this day. It's on its 6th incarnation of a series.
You could have fooled me. Like, before even doing this podcast, I assumed, based on what I see around me in the world, that Yu-Gi-Oh! Ended as a property in like 2003 and no one ever spoke of it again. But there are current series running, right?
Yeah, one just ended in September. And I don't think it'll be the last Yu-Gi-Oh! Series either. Vrains, I believe it's called.
Yeah, my brains.
And it also had one about playing cards on motorcycles.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah. So the series keeps going in Japan, but what about in America? Well, as I mentioned in our Pokemon episode last week, the late 2010s weren't a good time for 4Kids. They kind of, grew as big as they were gonna. They took over an entire Saturday morning block, and then the bubble kind of burst, and they lost a lot of their licenses, which once they lost that, where's the money coming in? And I think, so Pokemon, Nintendo, and the other companies, they wanted to take back the rights and give it to somebody else. They just ended their thing. It was even more acrimonious with TV Tokyo and 4Kids because they alleged that both 4Kids and Funimation was withholding money from them on sales, and they sued them 4Kids in 2011 for $5 million.
Wow.
And 4Kids was already not doing good, and they lost Pokemon, and now they have to suspend new Yu-Gi-Oh! Production and deal with this lawsuit in the hopes that maybe they could get some more Yu-Gi-Oh! To get some more money coming in. It's just a bad time for 4Kids. The lawsuit ends through a mutual settlement in March of 2012. It doesn't go to the courts, which you think might help 4Kids, but unfortunately they've already entered bankruptcy at this time.
Wow. I can't believe the company that brought us Pokemon to America could possibly go bankrupt.
They went too far. They thought, I mean, that's again, it's why sustainability, we are not super rich because we think of sustainability not trying to expand and grow forever onward, you
And
know.
spending debt.
Yeah, it's like, well, sure, we lost all of our Pokemon money, but the next Pokemon's just around the corner and we just got to keep spending more money. 4Kids bankrupt in June. They sell off their rights. They sell off a lot of broadcasting rights to other shows to Saban, and then Saban will sell some of that back to either their companies or to Disney.
That's how One Piece got freed from the awful 4Kids grasp.
Meanwhile, Yu-Gi-Oh! Had special interest from Konami, and so in June of 2012, Konami buys all the Yu-Gi-Oh! Dub rights and broadcasting rights back from 4Kids, buys every single piece of it. That's why the old dub is broadcast now, because they just straight up bought it. It's not like a lot of dubs get lost to time because like a company no longer exists.
Yeah.
So, but,
And that's why it's free on YouTube, right?
yeah,
legally.
So Konami not only bought that, but they also bought 4Kids' New York offices, which still is where the localization of Yu-Gi-Oh! Is operated out of, from Konami Cross Media New York. Around the same time, Konami canceled their deal with Upper Deck and just started publishing the cards themselves in America as well. So now Konami owns every piece of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Pie, which again, not the sales aren't what they were in 2019 as they were in 2002, but it's I wouldn't say no to that kind of income.
Yeah, still better than making video games.
And today Yu-Gi-Moto is more available than ever, with pretty much all of his shows freely streaming both on like YouTube, Hulu. If you go to Konami's official site, they just host every single episode of it you can watch.
Yeah, and surprisingly, the original sub is online too.
Yeah, that's the one of the most interesting things about it is, and it's on Netflix as well. It's one of those things that's just, it's everywhere.
Just take it.
Yeah, but yes, unedited subtitle episodes. So 4Kids and Funimation decided like in the late 2000s they were going to market some unedited Yu-Gi-Oh! To sell like Yu-Gi-Oh! Uncut to the grown-ups now who grew up with it. Once Konami took it over, I think they also didn't want to, they saw the market changed anyway, so while Yu-Gi-Oh! Would sometimes air on Nicktoons up until the mid-2010s, now they see that just put up subtitled episodes on Crunchyroll of the newest show, and whoever's going to watch it will watch it. But they definitely see Japan as their primary market where they can still sell it to kids. But yeah, so that's where Yu-Gi-Oh's at now. They have made an estimated $20 billion in sales on it. That's more than James Bond as well on that Wikipedia.
Take that, Jimmy.
Last thing I'll say about Yu-Gi-Oh is if you are a fan of Yu-Gi-Oh, you should definitely watch friends of the show, OKKO.
Yeah, that's right.
Their Wacky Jaxies episode is such an amazing tribute to original Yu-Gi-Oh! And it stars also friend of the show, Sungwon Cho, as the voice of Johnny, and also the Maximilian Pegasus type guy.
I have to watch that again now that I've seen Yu-Gi-Oh!
It's a true class. Oh, yeah, you'll appreciate it on a whole nother level now. Yeah. Oh, man, it's so good. The sharp features are done to such an extreme in the Wacky
Yeah, I love it.
Jaxies
It's
episode.
perfect parody.
And so, yes, that's the history of Yu-Gi-Oh! Up to now. Obviously, I completely ignored the 1,000 episodes of other animes that have had Yu-Gi-Oh! Since then. Maybe those will be in the future. Only if Alex Irish pays up, though, I think. No. We'll probably get to them eventually. So why don't we set up our trap cards, take a break, and when we come back, we're going to go through the first episode, The Heart of the Card.
なんだか誰かに操られてるみたい心は本当に僕のものなの聞こえない届かない君の声がざっとに遮られ消えてしまう
was supposed to be a game. But once I solved the Millennium Puzzle, everything changed. An ancient magic brought this game and its monsters to life. But now, do I control the magic, or does the magic control me?
Yu-Gi-Oh! Premieres Saturday, September 15th on Kids WB.
You've activated my trap card and joined the break on this week's episode of What a Cartoon. I'm Henry Gilbert.
Hey everybody, it's Bob Mackey, and I can turn into a taller version of myself with eyeliner.
Only when the Pharaoh strikes you.
That damn Pharaoh.
But yes, thanks for listening to this week's episode of What a Cartoon, where we cover Yu-Gi-Oh!, which was the choice by one of our top-level patrons. And patrons just like him help us do this every week for you guys. It's our full-time job, and we're fully supported by patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
That's right. If you go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons and sign up at the $5 level, you can hear every episode 1 week ahead of time and ad-free and get access to all of our podcasts behind the $5 paywall. That includes limited miniseries like Talking Critic, Talking Futurama, Talk King of the Hill, and the currently rolling out Talking Futurama Season 2 Part 1. A bunch of new episodes of Talking Futurama to get you through the end of 2019. And we also have all kinds of things on top of that, like interviews, end-of-season wrap-ups, monthly community podcasts, and we also have a higher tier, a $10 tier, where you get all of the $5 rewards, but you also get one extra long podcast every month about a movie that patrons vote on.
That's right. For $10 a month, patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons supporters, they get to hear the What a Cartoon Movie podcast. We've been doing it for a whole year. We're about to do our 13th one, unlucky 13th. But that one is going to be Toy Story. You can only hear that if you're a $10 and up patron, and those can sometimes go for over 4 hours. Right before that, we did The Nightmare Before Christmas, perfect listening in this holiday season. Before that, we did Cowboy Bebop the movie, and we've done so many great ones. You're going to want to hear all of them. If you like animes like Yu-Gi-Oh!, you'll want to check out Kiki's Delivery Service or Akira. Or if you're a 90s kid, I bet you like a Goofy movie. Well, we talk about that too. And tons more that you can only hear if you're a $10 and up Patreon subscriber at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
And if you've never listened to a Patreon podcast before, it's really simple. When you sign up, you get a nice little code. You have access to that code at all times, and you drop said code into whatever you use to listen to the podcast. Or if you want to do it another way, you can always download the Patreon app to your smart device. It works great. But either way, there are very easy ways to listen to our podcast alongside your other free podcasts.
That's right. So please check it all out at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. And now tally up your life points, because it's time to start another duel in our Yu-Gi-Oh! Podcast.
Time to duel! Compete. Adapt. Survive. It may be a game, but playtime's over. Yu-Gi-Oh! 6 days a week on Kids WB.
So me and Bob double watched this episode, Heart of the Cards, because it's available in basically the original 4Kids dub on YouTube and Netflix and other places. But you can also watch the official subtitled uncut version of it on Crunchyroll and other sites too. It's pretty crazy.
It is, yeah. And I noticed that with the American version, no lyrics because lyrics are for babies. You've grown up out of Pokemon, you don't need lyrics in your life anymore.
That intro is just too. It's too
bad.
trying to be cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's another thing about the branding with Yu-Gi-Oh and how Pokemon changed things. Like in another universe, they would have called it Duel Monsters when it premiered here. It would have been like, watch the show, Duel Monsters. But Pokemon was so memorable from being a word that makes racist people pause and go like, Pokemon. What's
Yeah.
the Pokemon? So Yu-Gi-Oh makes you have the same reaction as well.
All those hyphens they sneak in there. Yeah, I will say the opening song for the Japanese version is all right, but it's a really cheap opening animation.
Oh, in both cases.
yeah,
It's
it's
like,
so cheap looking.
I think when the show didn't start with a big budget, and I think once it proved to be a success in 2000 in Japan, that's when Gallup could really invest in better openings, like OP2, 3, and 4. Those are way better than the first one.
Yeah, at a certain point there are just like still photos of the characters, and it's just like, come on, this is the opening.
They had a deadline, Bob.
I know.
Let them sleep.
No, they must entertain me.
I mean, I read an interview with one of the animators from Yu-Gi-Oh, and he is just like, I just remember late nights.
Yeah, animators are famously tortured and paid nothing in Japan. So
yeah, it's good times. Good time. It's it's like how you ask yourself, oh man, how's everything so cheap at Walmart? Like, how's all this animation so great and affordable? Oh, it's because people work to death.
don't follow the supply chain.
I'm going to steal a joke from Jim Gaffigan. He says that hot dogs are like the strippers of food. He's like, please don't tell me how you got here. Let me just appreciate this.
That is a fun joke.
But enough. Anyway, yeah, the Japanese version starts with a quick explanation of how Yugi solved the Millennium Puzzle and unlocked a pharaoh. It's a very Egyptian story, and how there's all these Millennium items out there that he's already kind of found some of them in the story to this point. But
Yeah.
then they'll rewrite that later in the show.
And the Egyptian thing is kind of explained in the beginning, where they explain how ancient Egyptians liked games. They played games, invented games.
Also, JoJo Part 3, very Egyptian. It's a very
That's
Egyptian
true.
story. So another similarity, I'll say there. And yes, the show begins with the kids playing Duel Monsters in a classroom in a very believable way. This is the only time Yu-Gi-Oh will be played in a normal manner in the show.
Without high stakes in an arena and holograms.
Yeah, this is just on a desk against another kid. So also telling kids how to play it. Like, here's how you play it. Do it in your desk during break time. In the classic style of one student turns his chair around to play off the desk of the other student.
In the classroom, you never leave.
You got to sweep up, you got to clean up.
Yeah, it's true.
Or serve lunch. Also, in this version of it, even in the 4Kids version, they still have the classic Japanese school bells.
Yeah, do.
And so, as the kids are playing card games, we see that Yugi's pretty good at it.
They've been at it for hours. Joey's starting to get the hang of the game, but Yugi's like an expert.
Okay, Yugi. It's time to duel.
See, each card has an attack number and a defense number. First player to eliminate their opponent's life points wins the duel.
Pretty good move, huh, Yugi?
Yep. Pretty good move, but not good enough.
What? Thanks a lot. A card that powerful totally wipes me out.
Whoa, you stink at this game, Joey. Nah, you did fine, Joey. I just have better cards. See, my grandpa owns a game shop, and I get all my best cards from him.
Your own game shop? What are we waiting for? Let's go.
Okay. Maybe I can even get my grandpa to show us this super rare card he's got.
Rare card. Could they have found the card that I've been searching for?
And in the Japanese version, he's reading Nietzsche.
Just to make it more obvious.
Also, Sprach Zarathustra. I think.
Yeah. In German to show what a smart boy he is, too.
Yeah.
Just like Asuka does, actually. And Rey in Evangelion.
I'm reading Nietzsche to show what a dick he is.
Yeah, I mean, all of his talk about the right to power and only the strong survive. Like, it's, I mean, he's a fascist. Like, he's very rich, too. So, you need to make Kaiba a little hateable at first. But he's the show's Vegeta. He's getting a face turn like every rival in a show like this gets.
He should just drop out of school and run his mega corporation.
But that would be improper. If
I
he
guess.
if he didn't fully graduate high school, his father probably wouldn't even let him be on the board of directors. That's at least in fictional rich kids. That's very important. But yeah, this card game scene here, we get to hear Joey with his voice.
You know what your problem is, Yugi?
And also Tristan's kind of goofy voice too.
Yeah.
That voice changes in episode 11 of the show. Well, the thing I like on Yu-Gi-Oh! Abridged is they keep his voice. The first time he does Tristan's voice, he makes him sound like Bullwinkle. And he just talks like that all the time, like, no one must know my secret. And even when the voice changes on the show, a character just says out loud, like, wait, didn't my voice change? It's easier to make fun of you this way. We're keeping it that. So.
I do like hearing Eric Stewart play a villain. Usually I hear him play like doofy, good guy characters.
He rules at it.
Yeah.
But again, he's
I mean,
still-
James is a villain, but not like a serious villain.
No, he's insanely camp. This is quite different.
Yes, the card I'm looking for. Yeah.
Could he possibly have this card? He looks 4 years older than everybody, or Yugi is just a very small boy.
Yugi is much smaller than everybody else.
Yeah. He actually reminds me of Koichi from JoJo's Bizarre Adventure
That's
Part
right.
4.
Too many similarities. I smell another lawsuit for Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah. Again, I mean, how did they changed it to Duel Monsters once it was really a product, but how does Magic the Gathering not sue over this? It's crazy.
There are so many card games.
I guess. I mean, I guess nobody sues over the rules of poker either, I suppose.
That's true.
But it was called Magic and Wizards. I mean,
It was called that, not anymore.
Also, Yugi, like, come on, showing off your privilege. Oh, my grandpa owns a card shop. Well, screw you, kid. Joey has a lot of inferiority problems. There's a weird bit later in the show where when he gets beat by Kaiba, he then dreams that he is Kaiba's lapdog and is dressed like a dog.
Some weird baggage there.
A lot of baggage, yes. But so we head to the game shop. Grandpa shows off his wonderful cards.
Gramps, could you show my friends your awesome super rare card?
Rare card? My special card?
Please, please.
Pretty please?
Ha ha! How can I refuse? You kids are in for a treat. I don't take this card out too often. Ready? Here it is. The Blue Eyes White Dragon. So rare, so powerful, I never let it leave my hands.
Awesome.
Doesn't look all that special to me.
This card is priceless. There are only 4 of them in all the world.
Okay, so I was wrong earlier, not on the podcast, but talking to you through DMs, where they cut some lines out of the dub version, and there's more about how there are only 4, but they at least established this early that there are only 4 cards total.
Yeah, but they hit it lighter than they do in the original Japanese, which I actually think that was a good move on the localization on their part.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, I think it adds to more drama later in the battle.
It does hide more. We find out that later Kaiba wants this card because there are only 4, and he can use 3 of them in one deck, so he wants to eliminate any possible competition.
Which, if you know the Yu-Gi-Oh! Rules, that makes sense, but in English, they don't say that out loud, of like, why wouldn't he want to own all 4 because he could use 4 in a game? You need to know you can only use 3 of the same type of monster. I mean, that's just card balancing. Otherwise, your deck could just be all Blue Eyes White Dragons if you could afford it. It's funny that Grandpa says it's priceless because, at least in real life, right now on eBay, you could pretty easily get a Blue Eyes White Dragon for under $10.
I'm sure they made more than 4.
I think so, yeah.
It was like
what
the
most rare card is.
I bet the holofoil Charizard is worth a lot more now.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. The Solomon shop, too, the Grandpa's shop, it reminds me of a couple game shops I walked into in Japan, too. Like, it's a very specific design to it, though reminiscent of, card shops we all saw in America.
Yeah, except they're not selling lottery tickets, too.
I went into a Yu-Gi-Oh! Specialty card shop when I was super into HeroClix because they started selling HeroClix as well, and I was fiending for whatever place could sell me another booster pack of that.
I have not been to any Japanese non-video game stores, so I'll have to go next time.
Oh yeah, they're good time. I mean, a couple I went into were because they also sold plastic figurines of my favorite anime characters, but I also saw behind the counter, a wall of cards as well. the way they play the grandpa, he sounds like he's doing a reference to like the Gamera dubs of the old Mystery Science. They're like, oh, my cards, should I show them? Yes. Okay.
It is very stilted. Yeah. I think they told this guy it's a Japanese dub. Like, oh, I know the kind of acting you want. It's like, yeah, yes, yes, yeah.
But the direction on pretty much everybody else is, well, I mean, not, it's more natural, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But this guy definitely is like, what you do? Like, it reminds me of Prince of Space. What?
Yeah. It's a weird, like, non-accent where it's like, here's, like, stilted foreign speak in a way.
Yeah, a little bit.
Just to communicate that it's a foreign thing you're listening to a dub of.
I like how stupid Tristan is, too, just grabbing this rare card out of his hand, like, dude, that looks so special to me. And
get that thing in, like, a card holder. I mean, it's in a treasure chest, but it should be in, like, lucite.
It should have those
thing.
Sleeves. This feels like it predates the sleeves. Like,
oh, I had sleeves before this.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I guess the animators didn't know about the importance of sleeves.
Or the manga author.
He shows off his Blue Eyes White Dragon. This is another change I noticed in the that I think was probably to skirt around some American laws about commercials for things. In the Japanese version, they subtitle it as Joey saying, I want to buy more cards from you. In this, Joey says, let's trade. Let's trade, to make it not about, it's the one extra step of like, well, if we don't take this one step, then it's not a commercial.
The show is borderline illegal, but you can't have a character say, I want to buy the product that kids can buy in real life. Where can I get such a great products?
Probably at a game store like this one, no doubt. And so, as they're all talking, Kaiba enters, and he's not pleased.
Hello, can I help you?
Huh?
If you can't, it certainly wouldn't surprise me.
Seto Kaiba!
Kaiba? Doesn't he have a big fancy company to run? What's he doing down here?
Not that it's any of your business, but I came to see the card.
Hey, are you into Duel Monsters too? This is perfect. Maybe we could all duel together sometime.
Me? Duel you? I would have more of a challenge playing solitaire.
What?
I am the #1 ranked duelist in the country and the favorite to win the Duel Monsters Championship. You wouldn't last 2 minutes in a duel against me.
Ooh, I'm shaking. Maybe you'd like to settle this with fists instead of cards.
Whoa, take it easy, Joey.
But Yugi...
I like that one-line dialogue. What?
He doesn't even know what he's saying.
Yeah, it's like you just got insulted.
Yugi, did he just insult me? I like that Joey thinks he's Kaiba's equal. It's like when Krillin is threatening Vegeta or something. Kaiba at this point he's the villain of this, so I like that Eric Stewart plays Kaiba a little more nasty than he is even in the subtitles. Like, I think in the subtitled localization, he is brusque and not particularly nice, but he doesn't straight up say like, I'd rather play solitaire than against a bunch of dumbasses like you.
He's
like,
very matter of fact, but not like openly like, mustache twirling like this guy.
Yeah. And I mean, that's the level you play in so many animes. The rival that will later become a friend. If you know this guy's going to become a friend, then you don't make him too villainous, because that's a lot more you're going to have to walk back when he eventually becomes one of the good guys, which like, that's why Vegeta has to like double die and save the universe before people on the show can accept that he's not evil anymore.
Community service.
Plus, they had to like wish back every person he murdered too, and make. I think that's why also they made Nappa be the guy who actually kills a bunch of people.
I think you're right. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, Joey seems to think he can challenge Kaiba. He's got no chance. Kaiba even lets him know they're not on his level, and. Man, I think the animators have so much fun with Kaiba's face. Like, his reactions are just wild in this, right? But starting with when he sees the Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Yeah, it's the best part of a kind of like a stiff-looking show. They didn't have a lot of money at this point.
Especially the concave cheeks, they always make me laugh. Kaiba, I like at first you think he's opening a briefcase full of money, but it's actually a briefcase full of cards. That is another of the big adaptations is the art is basically the same, but they have to change the way every card looks because they're covered in Japanese text.
That seems like a lot of work.
But they don't. Yeah, it does. But they don't add English text, which is how they would look as the regular cards.
Yeah.
Apparently, some 4Kids guy in an interview said that they also couldn't explicitly make them look like the cards you can buy because that would have also been illegal in America. It could be one of both. I mean, it would be in SD. Could you even read that English text on those cards anyway?
Barely.
But yes, the Kaiba is offering first a bunch of cards to trade, then outright money because he's rich. But Grandpa wouldn't trade this card for the world.
If you won't trade, maybe you'll sell it. Name your price. I can pay anything you ask.
I'm sure you could. But this card is worth more to me than you could ever offer. Not because of its power, or because it's so rare, but because of what it means to me. This card was given to me by a dear friend, and so I treasure this card as I do that friend. So parting with it is completely out of the question.
No!
You'd feel the same even if it were a common card, right, Grandpa?
Exactly. You see, this precious card has bonded with my heart.
Fine. I've heard enough of your nonsense. Senile old fool. Hard in the cards. Ridiculous. These cards are all about power. And one way or another, his Blue Eyes White Dragon card will be mine.
I would have just taken it and ripped it up in front of him and been like, I'm rich.
But he doesn't want to cheat, you see. That's an important fact with Kaiba. He wants it all fair. So
he's a pretty bad rich guy then.
Yeah, though that's why they want to try to make him nice later, But yes, it will be revealed many episodes later that it's Professor Arthur Hawkins, who's the man who gave Grandpa that card. He'll be an important character later on the show for reasons I can't fully understand. But I just realized another aspect of the show that's extra insidious is that they don't just want you to buy the cards, but through the Goofus and Gallant style of the show, of Kaiba being the guy you don't want to be like, and Yugi being the guy they do want you to be like, they want you to love these cards.
Yes.
To not just want to collect them and be the best at them, but to connect emotionally with them.
Bond your soul to them.
It's
the heart of the cards.
It's like when you join the Marines and they're like, sure, you're good at shooting and you follow orders, but do you love America yet?
You have to sleep with your gun.
Exactly. And that is evil.
It really is.
The heart of the card things, it's also a funny way just to get around saying luck. Like, heart of the card means, like, I hope I'm lucky and pull this card.
He believed in himself so much that he pulled the right card.
But it is this scene right here is about showing you that you need to love all of your cards and treasure them desperately.
Even the most common one.
They're all worth your love and emotions. Which I'm with Kaiba. No, this is a game.
Bullshit.
You just get good cards and you go. Fuck you. And Kaiba's rich enough to get the best deck, but he also is skilled enough as a player to do it. He kind of reminds me, he's totally the stereotype of the super smart rich kid who's also great at everything. Maybe it's because you're wearing a shirt from it, but in the first Danganronpa, the rich kid character in that.
Yes, Byakuya.
I hate that guy because one thing with that character trope that always bugs me, it's just like, well, if I'm rich, I must be also the best at everything.
Yeah.
When we're just surrounded by fail sons, be they Hunter Biden or Eric Trump, who are just like, no, being rich and having status doesn't get you anything. It doesn't buy you common sense. In fact, makes you even softer.
That's why it's fiction.
I guess so.
But yeah, it's a real character type in Japanese media.
Kaiba
like
and that...
the haughty rich. By haughty, I mean Haughty. The haughty rich boy who is good at everything.
Who usually have very sharp chins.
Yes,
too,
yeah.
And they definitely make statements like, it would be far beneath my station to even talk to you. You're just a common, ordinary boy.
They've got a real Sideshow Bob energy to them.
And so Grandpa turns him down. Kaiba drives off. That's when they have another line that got cut in the American version, where he explicitly is talking to the guys at his company who just say like, well, you own 3 of the other 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons.
They really underline just the card economy in this world in the Japanese version.
And so Kaiba sends people to kidnap Grandpa, but I guess legally Grandpa tells himself, I have to teach him the heart of the cards. So he does choose to go. He was not kidnapped.
I usually lose in most board and card games I play, but I never lose so bad that I was hospitalized.
Yeah, his the defeat of Grandpa kind of reminds me of on South Park when Randy Marsh gets served.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
Yeah.
But yes, not only do they kidnap his grandpa, or at least suggest he come with him, they leave the store unlocked and just like, I mean, that again feels like a very Japanese thing of like, well, no one will rob my store just because no one's here. I also noticed when Yugi goes to pick up the phone, I swear he walks by like a Gundam model kit. It really, that feels like an Easter egg from the Gundam veterans who are working on this. So Kaiba calls up Yugi. I guess he was monitoring the store to know when Yugi was there, so that's when he called. But he lets Yugi know it's time to pick up his grandfather from daycare, I suppose.
Grandpa! Are you okay?
Yugi, I failed. I wanted to teach that boy Kaiba a lesson about the heart of the cards, but I lost.
Grandpa!
How's the old man feeling,
Kaiba, you sleaze, what have you done to him?
We had a duel, that's all, with each of us putting up our most valuable card as the prize. But I guess playing against a champion like myself was just too much stimulation for the old fool.
Kaiba, you should be ashamed of yourself!
It was fair. And look at the sweet prize I won.
Grandpa's most treasured card!
Yes, the Blue Eyes White Dragon is a rare and powerful card. And this one will never be used against me.
My Blue Eyes White Dragon! My treasure!
Grandpa, hold on!
Jesus, so melodramatic. I think one thing in the Japanese version, I think Kaiba hints about the holographic arena before we actually see it. I think in the dub, when Yugi first sees it, he explains it there, but he's like, I think in the Japanese, he's like, I beat your grandpa in my holographic dungeon or whatever.
Yeah, I think he said like my virtual simulator overstimulated him or something, which...
It explains why grandpa is in such bad shape.
I mean, all those sounds and explosions are a lot for like a 3-foot-tall man in his 80s.
Yeah.
Like, I understand that, but I mean, he lived through the war. He's suffered a lot, this grandpa. Solomon Muto. But also, in the subtitled version, Kaiba just straight up says, you can't use more than 3 cards, so I'm just going to tear up this one. I don't need a 4th card.
It explains like his entire intent with this.
But when Kaiba says, yes, there's only 4 of them, and this one will never be used against me. Well, if you owned it, you could never have it be used against you anyway, so... Why destroy something valuable?
It's a weird choice to omit this because this entire game is about teaching you rules, and that's a rule you could also teach in this episode.
Yeah, so I think it was just a localization choice and a bold one, but I think it pays off in that they don't want to reveal until the cards are played that Kaiba has 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons because it is more shocking and dramatic when it happens, which I do think pays off dramatically as a single episode.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, I could see them saying, well, we could tell the story better, but 4Kids didn't really respect the intent of the original authors very much.
No, I'm not saying they don't make bad localization moves all over the place, but I kind of like the obscuring of that fact because at least as a single episode experience, it's more fun to just learn like, oh my God, he has all 3 of them. Like, there's 4 out there. And when he plays one, you're like, oh, I guess he has 1. And then it just grows and grows from there.
Yeah, I can see why they would obscure that fact.
But him tearing the card seems to break Grandpa's heart and send him into like cardiac arrest.
Yeah, there's like an ambulance waiting there.
Though they also, in the subtitles, they make it even more clear where like Kaiba says, Taya says to Kaiba, you must have cheated. And he's like, it was a fair match. Like, I didn't cheat. Like, again, to let it be clear, he's a jerk, but he wouldn't cheat to win, unlike other villains they'll face later in the show.
And the girl gets to take him to the hospital. She gets ushered away from this fun excitement.
Yeah, Taya and Tristan both carry him away.
Oh, yeah, Tristan. I like that it wasn't just Taya.
Joey's the only one who gets to stay because he's his best friend. And also, he gets to be the Greek chorus. But yeah, they decide Yugi is going to play the game using his grandfather's cards.
Yugi, here! Take this.
Huh? Grandpa?
I built this deck. I put my soul in these cards. And I taught you everything I know, Yugi. Take them. Take my cards and teach him respect. Teach Kaiba respect for the heart of the cards, Yugi.
But Grandpa, you need help. I've got to get you to a doctor.
Sounds like an excuse. Your friends can care for your grandfather, while you and I duel. Unless you're afraid.
Take him, Yugi!
That in the subtitle version, that's when Joey explains that he used to be a bully and Yugi taught him not to be.
Yeah, that's right. Using his like soul shatter effect
Mind
or whatever.
crush.
Mind crush. Yeah. Which is like, that's something I needed to know because what he does at the end of the episode, I'm like, well, what does that mean? Is that a metaphor for you changing his mind, or is it an actual power you have?
It's a real moment without this stuff, but I think 4Kids wanted to keep this as free of context as possible to just get all these kids need to learn. These kids have to learn these complicated rules of duel monsters. So you're making it even tougher if you're telling them about backstory.
Yeah. We don't need this nuance. Sell those cards.
Nuance doesn't push those booster packs. So then Taya decides, like, well, we'll always be together if I draw our special mark, which I feel so dumb that I didn't recognize was a smiley face until like my third viewing. Of it.
That's lost on me.
See,
I didn't see. I mean, think of it was just poorly communicated. I guess maybe I just looked away for a second, but I didn't see a smiley face.
Well, it also kind of looks like they're like hiragana characters at first too. That's what my brain instantly went to. Like, wait, is she writing hiragana on here? But
yeah, I watched the sub second, and it's the same symbol, which I didn't recognize. I'm like, what is this? I thought they just redrew like a kanji or a kana or whatever, but no, it was a smiley face the entire time.
It's a smiley face with an open mouth.
Yeah.
Now it's like now knowing about a 3D picture of just like, oh, that's what it is. That's the
sailboats. Oh no, we landed on the sailboat thing.
And so Taya just leaves with Tristan to simplify things, so Joey can be basically the commentator of the match. Which in a tournament anime like Yu-Gi-Oh is, you need constant commentating because otherwise the match will go way too fast and won't fill 30 minutes.
Or it'll be all internal monologue.
Yeah. Which you got to vary things up. You need another character going like, what? I can't believe it.
Now, I really don't mind. Like, I thought I would think this is boring, but I watched a ton of Kaiji recently, and it's all about, like, characters explaining rules over and over and over again, and unexpected things happening, and lots of violence.
And making stressed faces as they think about things and make plans.
Like, I watched a man fight a pachinko machine for 11 episodes, and it was captivating. I swear to God, it was good.
You and Super Eye Patch Wolf have said this, but I just can't believe it. A pachinko machine.
I couldn't believe it either. By the way, my Twitter avatar is a Kaiji version of me that Nina drew, in case you're wondering what that angry man is.
It's great.
I love it. I switched back to it as of today, which is November 1st. So
you were good as Bob Uzumaki, though, as well.
I did gross a lot of people out, unfortunately.
Man, that Nina Matsumoto is a great artist.
I know. This is her fifth mention on this podcast.
So Yugi gets handed his grandpa's card, so it's not his deck. So he's got a good deck in his hands anyway.
He's not playing with a full deck without that Blue Eyes White Dragon. Am I right?
He's got, he is one card lighter without that Blue Eyes White Dragon. He should just slide in another card, I think. But I think it should be pretty disqualifying for Kaiba that he gets to just build his own game accessories that people play on. That also sounds like cheating, especially when he invents things that then people use in card games later in the series. So he must be selling them to the card companies, which that's, again, so much influence that he has. So then Yugi is getting ready for his fight, and that's when he makes his completely unexplained in the 4Kids version transformation.
Right.
I designed this virtual stadium myself. Impressive, I think you'll agree it adds a bit more life to the game. We each begin with 2,000 life points. First player to hit 0 loses. Are you ready to play, Runt?
Playtime is over, Kaiba!
What the?
Now, Kaiba, prepare yourself, because it's time to duel!
I'm not a huge fan of the alter ego because it's not that different. It's just like, now I'm taller and have eyeliner.
His happy oval eyes turn into angry eyes.
I like the changed version better. I don't know if they improved on it, but the transformation sequence is not very good either.
It's a lame transfer. I think they do improve on it. Well, you notice that his silly bangs, 3 of them then start to point up in the star of his hair. So there's a little subtle differences. The Japanese voice actor plays like slightly gruffer, but Dan Green makes Yugi go from like a boy to a man.
Yeah,
Like,
just
he
like,
plays him as
it's
an
over,
adult.
Kaiba. I'm going to get you now.
Exodia. Like, yeah, he's damn it. I mean, it's also interesting. Veronica Taylor voiced Ash, and that's normally how it is in American dubbing of a woman voicing the young boy lead. So having an adult man do it is very different. And so yeah, the Yugi's Pharaoh brings in the hair gel and the eyeliner, and
It
he's
glams him up.
Kaiba is right to be shocked. That was insane, and he should just pause like, what the fuck just happened?
This really should have been explained.
Nobody told me. But so the fight begins. Kaiba throws out his Hatsumi Giant first, which has kind of a fun design. And then Yugi throws out a dragon. They have a little monster fight, which that's when the animators get to have a little fun.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you just have static children staring at each other.
I think Joey goes like, real monsters?
Yeah, Joey is incredibly shocked by it. Then Kaiba pulls out a card to it. So Kaiba takes 200 damage. He then pulls out a card that Yugi really sounds like a first-time player for not understanding what's going on.
Well played, Yugi, for a beginner. But how will you deal with this?
Sagi the Dark Clown, but that card has hardly any attack strength.
True, your Winged Dragon's attack is 1400, while my Dark Clown's is only 600. But if I combine it with this card...
A magic card!
Exactly. The negative energy generator. It multiplies my monster's attack by 3. Dark Clown, attack with Dark Light!
So that's another big change they made in America after the first couple of years, I think it was. They said magic card. Like, that's a magic card.
Yeah.
So in
Small M magic card.
In Japanese, they do also call like Maho card, which I believe means magic.
Yeah.
So I think eventually they realized like, oh, wait, that's a copywritten term. So they are now called spell cards, which it's also called in the subtitles for it, the official subtitles of that episode now.
So I guess I was trying to figure out the rules. So I guess he draws the clown.
Yes.
And then in the same turn, he draws the magic card.
Well, yeah, I guess he got to, again, these rules don't make sense.
Yeah.
You can't play two cards in the same
I was just
turn.
like, well, how did he get to pull two cards?
He
Yeah.
should have taken damage from an attack when he pulled out the clown.
But also that's boring.
I mean, it's not. They want to make it clear that he only gets hit the first time because he let Yugi do it. He's like, oh, well, okay. I especially like in the subtitle version, it says like, it's okay to play with a handicap. Like, yeah, you shouldn't be able to play both those at the same time. But also, Yugi should know, like, oh, yeah, people can use cards to enhance other monsters. That's the entire point of the game.
Yeah. Otherwise, it'd just be like playing war. Like, no, this card's bigger than that card. I win.
Yeah. Oh, I drew a better monster than your monster. I drew a better monster than your. Yeah. It'd be a pretty boring game if there weren't those magic cards. So Yugi should probably know. I guess, they tried to make us think Yugi was really good at the game earlier, but he did beat Joey, who was apparently just terrible at it. So. But yes, the clown starts killing all his monsters, and then I like these little speeches about how Yugi's like, my grandfather made this deck for me. I think I've seen that in so many battle animes where they're like, I inherited this thing from my grandpa. Now
that's right.
I need to learn its power.
It's all about believing in the merch, too.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Touch that merch.
Kiss
feel
it.
with blow it kisses. And so Yugi does trust in the heart of the cards, and it already is paying off for him.
You're not faring any better than the old man did, Yugi. Your deck is just as weak and feeble as your grandfather.
My grandpa is a great man and a better duelist than you'll ever be. He entrusted me with his cards, and I can feel his heart in this deck. I doubt you have that kind of faith in your cards, Kaiba.
What?
But I believe in my grandpa's deck. And my faith rewards me with Gaia, the Fierce Knight, with a destructive power of 2,300.
My grandpa's a veteran.
You wouldn't know anything about that. Yeah, he's stealing grandpa glory there.
Yeah, I know. Grandpa Valor.
But I love Kaiba's like, huh? Some great reaction sounds there. And again, trusting in the heart of the cards is just luck. Like, you were just lucky. Though I guess Yugi, if we believe that, Yugi would have quite a speech about how that's not luck and it's befriending the cards. So his Gaia takes out Kaiba's guy, but Kaiba already has another card up his sleeve, the first Blue Eyes White Dragon.
Way to go, Yugi!
All right, Kaiba, your move.
Ha! This'll be over sooner than you think. I call on the Blue Eyes White Dragon!
No way!
Impossible! We all watched Kaiba tear that card in half.
Surprised? Did you think your grandfather was the only one to possess a Blue Eyes White Dragon?
So yeah, that's the big reveal that he has all three cards, or the first one. And I will say, when I watched this for the first time, I had heard the term Blue Eyes White Dragon before, but I've never
heard it a
seen
lot.
it.
Yeah. That's the one thing I knew. I knew Heart of the Cards and Blue Eyes White Dragon. That's all I knew about the series.
And I did kind of fall into the dramatic thing they got me with, of like, oh wow, he has his own Blue Eyes White Dragon. He has two of them. Whoa!
And then he has three.
Yeah, so
it's a pretty far way to go for the first episode to use the three three copies of the most powerful card in the first battle. It's like, where do you go from here?
Well, in Kaiba's case, he gets a card that lets him combine all three into a three-headed Blue Eyes White Dragon card as well. So there's places to go from.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen that design. I was confused as to why the Blue Eyes White Dragon only had one head. I thought it had three.
Yeah, no, they it's a hat on a hat. They gild that lily pretty quick with Blue Eyes White Dragon, which I really love the design of it too. Like it has blue eyes, and even though it's supposed to be a white dragon, it has like really good like blue accents on it too.
Yeah,
like,
it's very shiny.
Great. Yeah, Yugi is seemingly losing all hope as a second dragon appears.
Ha! Your fierce knight is destroyed. Faith or no faith, you will fall before my superior monsters, Yugi. Power is what this game is all about, you fool. Faith is for losers, like your pathetic grandfather. In your entire deck, there's not a single card that can stand up to a Blue Eyes White Dragon. So what hope do you have against two? Why don't you just admit defeat, Yugi?
Don't give up, Yugi.
I won't give up. Grandpa's counting on me.
So, like, I also don't get the rules of this where Kaiba can pull these dragons, but they don't immediately attack.
Yeah, he should make a move on his second one of pulling it out, and just he'd defeat him right then.
We need a Yu-Gi-Oh card master to let us know. Like, when you pull a monster, doesn't it immediately attack, or can you decide when to attack?
I think they do put in the rules that you don't immediately attack.
Okay.
I'm probably saying everything wrong here.
Yeah,
Look,
please correct us. I'm sure there's a lot of 30-year-olds out there who can teach us 37-year-olds a thing or two.
And then Yugi gets lucky and pulls the delaying card, which puts a pause on those other two.
Yeah, like he loses 3 turns or whatever.
Yeah. But then he just draws out a different monster. They're still fighting each other. That's where a Dark Magician comes out, which I really love the design of Dark Magician. I think that's my favorite design.
He's the Judge Man.
There's even episodes where I think Yugi dresses like Dark Magician in a pretty cool look. The grandpa reveals that he has Obi-Wan powers of projection at this point.
I thought he was dead. This is not, like, at first I wasn't sure. Is he remembering what his grandpa told him? I was like, no, this is his Force ghost.
And he explains to Yugi he needs to not give up.
You have to put all the different pieces in their proper place.
Like the Millennium Puzzle?
Exactly. Each piece helps build a greater entity.
Grandpa!
Like the pieces of a puzzle, Yugi.
Get it.
Puzzle? When are the cards like a puzzle? Wait, Grandpa once said...
Duel Monsters contains only one unstoppable monster, Exodia, but he can only be summoned by drawing all 5 special cards. A feat that to this very day no one has ever accomplished.
Quit your stalling, Yugi, or you will forfeit the match.
I never forfeit.
He needs so much help to get to that point where not only does his grandpa's ghost tell him, he's like, what did my grandpa say after the ghost leaves? And he remembers a memory of his grandpa telling him.
Yeah,
it's really weird.
It feels like there's one level too many there. Like,
yeah.
Couldn't his Force ghost tell him like, hey, remember about that one card? Or he could just say like, Oh, like the pieces of a puzzle. Wait, a puzzle? And then he remembers. But I would also think he's really bad at playing the game if after the third card of Exodia he got, he didn't realize what cards he was playing, you know?
Like Grandpa should have just been like, you're building Exodia. Pull these 5 cards.
You're at 3 already. You can get the other 2. I believe in you. So my husband explained to me that because of this episode, when he started playing Yu-Gi-Oh, he built an Exodia deck.
Oh, wow.
And he said that the skills, it is not as rare as a thing that never happens, but it's still kind of rare that you can get them. But it is an instant win, basically.
Yeah,
it's like
and-
getting the snitch in Harry Potter.
And those parts do things on their own when you summon them, right?
Yeah, they do some damage.
So the Exodia is just like he's a monster, but there are 5 parts that make the monster, like arms and legs and a head or whatever.
And it does so much damage as to be an instant win, is my understanding. But he also says you have to build your deck all around that. So the support cards you get also are about drawing more cards so you can just get through all of your deck to hopefully get all 5, which Yugi isn't even doing that. He just hopes for the heart of the cards to get them all 5. Fortunately, his faith gets rewarded.
Seems
for
to
his
work out
sake.
for him, yeah.
And so the third Blue Eyes White Dragon is played, and seemingly all hope is lost.
You can't possibly stand against my 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons. It's over, Yugi. You were never a match for me.
Don't listen, Yugi!
Kaiba had 3 blue eyes all along. He only wanted Grandpa's card so it couldn't be used against him. My only chance now is to assemble all the pieces of Exodia, but the odds are against me. I don't think I can do this. The deck, it senses my doubt. Don't lose focus, Yugi. Don't lose faith. Concentrate. Our friendship symbol.
Yeah, it's weird. So in the Japanese version, in the American version, he's having a monologue with himself. In the Japanese version, it's Joey going like, "All he needs to do is pull the one card he needs, and he can win." It's just like it's Joey doing most of the talking, like in the audience, like explaining more. Like he needs to pull one more card, and he'll summon the thing.
You know, I think I like the 4Kids version better to show that his heart, like he was losing heart or he was losing kind of hope, and the internal monologue around it. It's much more the usual trope of having the best friend be the one who has doubts, you know?
Yeah.
But I especially like that his internal monologue doubt then makes like the cards pull away from him, like, oh no, I'm losing faith. That means the cards are going away.
So you believe in the cards and friendship.
Yes, friendship. I like how he looks at his hand. I mean, that's a cool, just for the whole show, when they animate him doing stuff with his hands, they draw the like chunk of the smiley face in different angles of it. And yes, so Yugi believes in the hearts of the cards. He is rewarded, and he pulls out the 5th of Exodia, and it really fucks up Kaiba.
They're right. I've got to believe in the cards like my friends believe in me.
Draw your last pathetic card so I can end this, Yugi.
My grandpa's deck has no pathetic cards, Kaiba. But it does contain the unstoppable Exodia.
Impossible!
I've assembled all 5 special cards, all 5 pieces of the puzzle.
Exodia! It's not possible! No one's ever been able to call him!
Exodia! Obliterate!
And that's when, again, we get such a great dramatic reaction from Kaiba, like, ah! Like he exploded. Which,
I love any anime character going, impossible!
no! It's so great. I mean, it's so satisfying when they build up Kaiba as such a smug dick that when his plans all fall apart and like he probably loses his first game of Yu-Gi-Oh ever, that's really great. Like it is really rewarding to see.
It does make you wonder where they go from here, though, with another 240 episodes.
Well, I'll tell you in a couple episodes, a kid tricks Yugi into letting him see his cards, and he throws Exodia out the window. So that's why he can. Exodia is too powerful. It would just be the Exodia show after that.
Yeah, it's like it's the one thing that can beat the 3 Blue Eyes White Dragon cards.
So they write it off the show. That's what happens to Exodia.
That makes sense. Makes a lot of sense.
And so, yeah, Kaiba's reaction faces, I mean, that's great acting by Eric Stewart there, but really, the reaction faces are where it's at, like his concave cheeks, like he's just like, no, like it's posing. So
yeah, and that is
he's a real drama queen.
That's the meme I see where it's like you can put in your own words to make an argument happening where like the your enemy says one thing and then you say the other thing and he's shocked.
Yes, yeah. And it's on the final Exodia card. It's so great. And I now finally understand that meme. We understand a new meme as old men. Also, speaking of changes they made, in the Japanese version, it's a pentagram that summons Exodia. It's they change it up to make it like 10 points.
Give the kids a pentagram.
They've already, 4Kids has had to weather the Bible thumpers mad about Pokemon. They don't need more. This show's already demonic enough.
Yeah, it's occult as hell.
I mean, this is literally summoning demons. This show is like, I guess they're VR demons, but yeah, the Obliterate destroys him. You can see Kaiba probably is going to need a trip to the hospital after these reactions.
His mind is blown.
But yes, the end of this episode is pretty goddamn extreme. So apparently though in the comic, the Mind Crush when he did it, like put Kaiba in a coma that doctor said he'll never get out of.
Wow.
And then when he gets out of it, he goes through a slow process of being less evil. In the anime subtitle version, he says, this will cure the evil of your heart, and he like breaks his mind. And at least says like a move name, like Mind Crush. So they at least, but he doesn't go into a coma. But they do make it clear that this is why Kaiba becomes less of an asshole and nicer to his little brother, who you see for like 2 seconds in this episode. That's why Kaiba becomes a better person after this.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was a special move or just like a visual metaphor for Kaiba's heart breaking or changing.
It is a special move that the Pharaoh gave him. Yeah. So
there's 8 books of backstory to this first episode.
So here's the mind-crushing finale.
You did it! Yugi, you won!
This can't be! My brother never loses!
You play only for power, Kaiba, and that is why you lost. But if you put your heart in the game, there is nothing you can't do.
But how? How could I have lost to him?
Kaiba, if you truly want to know, open your mind! Fair, Kaiba. Maybe now you will begin to see.
Grandpa's awake!
What?
Yugi won.
Mr. Pegasus, sir. Seto Kaiba, our uncontested champion. He's been defeated in a duel, sir, by someone named Yugi.
So much happens in like 20 seconds.
Yeah.
It's like, you're changed forever, and your grandpa's alive, and there's a new villain.
It sounds like they were totally running out of time, and they're like, we got to set up the rest of the show.
Yeah, and they didn't change Pegasus's wine color to be like blue or whatever.
That surprised me.
Yeah.
That, I guess if they were pushed on it, they'd say it's grape juice. It's grape juice.
Mommy was drinking a lot of wine after 9/11 when this episode aired.
On OKKO, they make such a great joke about it when people are drinking things that look like champagne. They have a very conspicuous apple juice box next to
or
it.
like the blue fire. They have to make it blue.
The classic non-red fires. But that's Maximilian Pegasus there at the end, the lead villain of the first season, at least, of the show, who he's also showing that his left eye is a Millennium item as well. So there's he might be a little more challenging than just another fellow school chum like Kaiba is. But I like in English, it's just open your mind. That's just a suggestion. You should do that. But the shattering on screen is pretty.
In Japan, it's like I broke you. I broke you.
He says, "Here's my move. You are broken." Like, yeah, but they let you see that the grandpa's okay though. Don't be too sure the grandpa's going to stay that way, because in, I think, the next episode or the one after, Maximilian Pegasus sends them basically the ring tape and traps him in the Shadow Realm.
I assume grandpa was getting fridged in the show at some point.
Yeah, well, he can't be around. Yugi needs to learn these things on his own. If grandpa's around, then he's just going to be teaching Yugi all the time, and that's not a very, self-possessed lead character of your anime. Meanwhile, he needs to, if he has a victim to chase after,
Yeah.
And, that's there you go.
Or a dead victim to remember to inspire him.
I only watched more abridged, so I don't know how the other plot goes. But I also did watch the final episode of regular Yu-Gi-Oh! Just to see how it all ends. It's an interesting ending. They really do give kind of a complete finale to the show, which I do, or at least Yugi's story. The series does continue on, I think, in the same timeline and also side timelines.
Wow, very complicated.
But yeah, I think this single episode as a battle anime was fun. It didn't work to make me want to buy Duel Monsters cards,
No,
but it was fun.
Absolutely not. It sped by. It was 18 minutes of my life, but it sped by, and like I watched both of these, and they were over before I knew it. Like the Japanese version and the American version just went by so fast, and it's all about teaching you about Yu-Gi-Oh! And I do enjoy people slowly playing a game that's explained to the audience. Animes, those are fun.
It's always when a new detail or rule is revealed, it's just like it does feel cool. Like, ooh, a new wrinkle. Ooh, boy.
But I'm glad I have context for what the hell this is.
Now we finally understand what those Zoomers are talking about with their Yu-Gi-Oh!
Zooming all around. It's going to be your turn on the chopping block next. Millennials get all the blame. Zoomers, we're coming after you.
I got to see it with these Zoomers that they grew up loving Sonic Adventure while we liked regular Sonic, and now they're the ones who are like, why these kids like Sonic Boom? Sonic Adventure is where it's at.
It'll happen to you.
Happen to you.
So thanks again for listening to another episode of What a Cartoon, and special thanks to Alex Irish, who supported this show via Patreon. If you want to support our show as well, please go to patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. And if you sign up for the price of $5 a month, you'll get every episode of this podcast 1 week ahead of time and ad-free. And the same goes for our sister show, Talking Simpsons. You will also get access to everything behind the $5 paywall. Everything we've been making for the past almost 2.5 years now that is behind the paywall for patrons. That includes all of our limited miniseries, but especially Talking Futurama Season 2, a new episode of that show every Friday until the very end of 2019. It's rolling out now. You don't want to miss it. And Henry, what is happening at the $10 level for patrons who want to pledge $10 a month?
If you enjoy this podcast of What a Cartoon, you want to hear What a Cartoon Movie at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons. Premium subscribers at $10 a month get to hear a different exclusive podcast where we talk about a different animated feature film every month. For the holiday season, we just did The Nightmare Before Christmas, 3.5 hours of musical fun where we go into the exciting history of that movie. And another awesome one, Pixar related, is coming in November. Keep your eye out for it, and you can only hear it if you're a $10 up subscriber at patreon.com/TalkingSimpsons.
So I've been one of your hosts, Bob Mackey. Find me on Twitter as Bob Servo. My other podcast is Retronauts. Check it out at retronauts.com or just look for Retronauts in your podcast device. And that is a classic gaming podcast. If you like video games, I'm sure you'll like Retronauts. Henry, how about you?
Oh, man, all of our Yu-Gi-Oh! Listeners must love video games.
They better.
But yes, you can follow me, Henry Gilbert, on Twitter at HENEREYG. Whenever there's new podcast, I'm sure to tweet those out. And whenever it's on the Patreon or the free feed. Plus, I'm sure I'll start sharing some more Yu-Gi-Oh! Memes now that I understand them. So you're going to want to follow me there at HENEREYG. And as long as I'm plugging podcasts on Twitter, you guys should be following the official revamped Twitter account for Talking Simpsons and What a Cartoon.
That's right. It's Talk Simpsons Pod. Check it out for updates about everything that we're doing. So that is it from us this week. We'll see you next week with the bonkers episode, I Oughta Be in Tunes. Check it out now on Disney+.
Hello? Game shop?
Ah, Yugi, perfect.
Kaiba?
Your grandfather's here visiting, but he's not feeling well. Why don't you come by my office and pick him up?
Kaiba? What have you done, Kaiba?